30 Minutes with Ron. Hello, I'm Ron Gagliardi. I'm the host of 30 Minutes with Ron, and this evening we have a very special thing happening. Ruth Sullo, who's right over here, is the guest for this. It's actually my guest for this evening, and she has been on the show once before, and she was so magnificent that we had to get her back. Welcome, Ruth.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
I hope you are, yes. And Ruth is going to be speaking and conversing about something about decision-making in a couple of different situations. Now, we talked about something at a high school, Hamden High School, in fact, called SOS. Would you share your thoughts about SOS?
SOS stands for Students Offering Support. A lot of students like to help others out, and sometimes you'll have a student who has a personality that really needs an outlet for that thing, and we had a group called SOS Students. We partnered with North Haven High, and they learned how to counsel other students and help communicate, help solve, mediate problems between students, and they just loved that. And anytime you did training with them, like this 5-step decision-making model, you could see it lit them up, and they were happy about learning that and using it.
Okay, so now this 5-step decision model, which we're going to go into, you used it there as well as at the prison in Cheshire?
Yes, my husband and I, we are prison volunteers at Big Cheshire, Cheshire Correctional Institution, which is a maximum security adult prison. We would go in for 12 sessions once a week. We'd be in a room with 20 inmates, no guards, and we would teach the lesson. There are 5 steps, and it took 12 lessons to teach it. And the inmates were so appreciative of that. It just felt good to do that. I did it for a lot of years.
The program was called
Thresholds.
Yes. Let me say that again because I said it at the same time you said it. Thresholds, you say it.
Thresholds.
Excellent. And you were one of the founders of Thresholds?
No.
Oh,
no.
So an inmate, you said at one point.
This was founded by an inmate in the 60s. He was a doctor, and he was arrested. I don't know what for. I should know, but I don't know. But he decided to set up a training program for his fellow inmates in how to make decisions, because he realized that they would get out of jail, come back to jail. All they did was react. They had no sense of thinking about the pros and cons or the consequences or what they were risking. And he set up these 5 steps, and it became a program that is taught in prisons throughout the East Coast into the Midwest. You can use it in corporations. You can use it in schools. I used it in schools because I was a teacher for many years. And for a lot of years, I just used it in schools. But then in the 80s, my husband and I decided to team teach in prison. And that was very satisfying to do.
No fear in prison?
No.
No?
You have to be streetwise.
Oh.
You have to be alert. But as one of the guys said, we call them the guys, as one of the guys said, if any of us gave you a hard time, it would just not be worth it. We would get so much time added onto our sentences. He said, this may be one of the safest places for you to be. So, no, really. And you could tell by the way this program is designed that you were making a difference in people's lives. And we felt very appreciated.
Okay, so now you say there's 5 steps.
Yes.
And the first step is see the situation clearly.
See the situation clearly.
Yes.
Life, I have some diagrams.
Aha.
We see life as a series of situations. Each one of these X's is something that happened in your life.
Okay, now hold that up for our camera.
And what we do is we would take one to talk about and think about that situation. There are facts and there are feelings. You can't just make a decision based on your feelings. You have to think of what is going on in the situation. And we make a list of what are the facts and what are the feelings to make a contrast between that. Rather than just be impetuous and jump to a quick conclusion, just the thought of separating what do you have control of and what do you have no control of helps you step back and make a better decision. That's step 1.
Step 1.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned earlier off camera that you have a painting tonight with us
Yes.
by Picasso.
Yes.
And even though I had a semester of Spanish, I'm probably going to get it wrong, so I'm going to say it two different ways. It could be Guernica, or it could be Guernica, or it could be something else completely, but we have it tonight.
We pronounce it Guernica.
Guernica. Oh, well, see, there's a third one.
It's a Picasso. I'll spell it out. Guernica.
Okay.
They're going to be showing this on the screen. This is a huge painting.
Yes.
This is probably 30 feet long in real life and 12 feet high. And it's a very impactful painting. And at the end of the first session, when we're just starting the class, we have the guys gather around this painting and just look at it. And then we ask questions. There's a series of questions, and the process is called art forming, and you find meaning in something for yourself. You can use this for a painting or a play or a conversation or a meeting you were at or a book you read. But the first question is, what stands out in your mind when you look at this picture?
Do you tell them about the origin of it and what it
No.
was? Because I think it's about the Spanish
It
Revolution.
has to do
or
with
war.
the Spanish Civil War.
Civil War, yeah.
And it's Picasso's impression of what it was like for the little town of Guernica to be bombed by the Germans for 3 hours. And it was reduced to even less than rubble, just stones. And it was before the Second World War, 1937 this happened. But we don't tell the guys that. We just want them to experience this painting. So we say, what stands out in your mind? Sometimes the horse stands out, or the bull, or the flames, or the light bulb at the top. And where would you put this painting if you were going to put it in your house? If you were in this scene, where would you place yourself in this scene? What needs to be added to this painting? What do you think should be removed from this painting? And then after they talk like that, we ask them the big question. When in your life have you ever felt the way this painting makes you feel? And they say answers like, this is what it was like growing up in my home. Wow. Or this is what it was like when I killed somebody. And I didn't want to, I did, and I'm here for a reason, but it was like that. Or this is what prison is like every single day. And the guys cry at that question. It's very impactful. And during that first session, and we share our own impressions of that painting as well, that's when the group becomes a real group and people connect with each other. And then we go into the rest of the steps.
Okay, so step 2 is know what you want.
Step 2, know what you want, has to do with setting goals. You set big goals. You think to yourself, what do you want most in life? Now I'm going to draw a bowl. Your main goals in life are the biggest. Your long-term goals that you want to achieve by the time you die. And then there are intermediate goals. See, we all have nesting mixing bowls at home. The intermediate goals have to be in line with your main goals. And then what are you going to do now? You don't start off with, well, what are you going to do now? You start off with what are your biggest things that matter to you the most? Like to establish a good family life for your kids and so forth, or to get to college and make a difference, something like that. And then you go down to, what do you have to accomplish today? What do you have to accomplish here when you're in prison? And so forth. And that's step 2, know what you want, so that all your decisions are in line with those goals.
I have something like that myself, but I have short-term goals, long-term goals, impossible goals. It's fun to have impossible goals. Like, I want to win an Oscar someday. And at age 71, it's highly unlikely that I'm going to do that, but it's still there. And I think it's good to have impossible goals.
Well, 71 is a prime number. You're in your prime.
Oh, that's right. I forgot.
You could win an Oscar.
All right. Thank you. I have your word on that. All right. Step 3, expand your possibilities.
Yes. We do the $20 bill story. Imagine you're in a bar. These guys would go to bars.
Of course.
You're in a bar, and you realize that a $20 bill you had in your pocket fell on the floor, and you you're going to pick it up, but you notice there's a big size 12 shoe on it. And you look up and you say to the guy, that's my $20 bill. He said, no, it's mine. You can't prove it's yours.
Oh, the shoe's attached to somebody.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Okay.
And so the goal is to get your $20 bill back. And so, what are the possible ways that you can get your $20 bill back? And we draw a circle with rays going out 360 degrees, and you want your $20 bill back. And what can you do? So the guys, when you ask them to brainstorm, they say, well, you could knife him, you could hit him, you could shoot him, you could break his kneecaps, you can get someone else to break his kneecaps, you could mug him when he goes out the door and get it back. All they think of is violent ways that could land them in prison. So you could write the word violent solution on just one of them because it's all the same thing. And they say, well, what else can you do? You could just see if he's joking. You could say, you don't mean that. You know, and he'll say, nah, I'm just playing you. Here, have your money. You don't know.
Right.
You really don't know if he's playing you. You could ask to the bartender to settle the problem because maybe he knows this guy. And he may say to the guy, well, you lay off. Stop bugging that guy. Give him his $20. You don't know their relation. You could try all different kinds of things. You could tickle him. You could crack a joke.
Now,
you could cry.
Wait a minute. You're not going to tickle somebody you don't know who has a size 12 shoe.
But you don't know what it... Well, see, this is brainstorming. Brainstorming, you go for all kinds of wild and crazy solutions because that's how you stretch your brain, because all you need is one good solution.
Right.
And where you're going for wild and crazy, the good solutions will appear in that list.
Okay.
So we are able to fill up all different types of solutions for that one problem. And we say, when you have a problem, don't just take your one solution that comes to you fast, like a reaction.
Right.
You don't want to just react. You want to make a good decision.
Okay.
That's
and
step
then you
3.
evaluate and decide.
Evaluate and decide. We take a few of the choices and we examine. We make a table and we examine for risks. What are you risking in each one? Because maybe they'll get back in prison and they'll lose their family life. What are the odds of that method succeeding? And what are the outcomes? Will the outcomes be good or bad? And then you just rank each one. You put a % on each one. And you look at what you've written out and you say, wow, it certainly looks like talking to the bartender would be certainly the best of all these alternatives. And they realize, oh, you have to go through a process to make a decision. You don't just snap to something. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then you have to...
It's not complete unless you act. You have to act, which means you have to set up an action plan. Like, what will you do this week? What will you do today? What has to happen for if you're going to buy a car or get a driver's license or apply for a job? You make a decision, go through the process. What do you have to do first? Do you need working papers? Do you need identification? Do you need someone to vouch for you and write you recommendations? Do you have to call them to ask them to do that? So you set up an action plan with all these things. And I'll tell you, the guys really have a good effect. It has a good effect on them. And that's not the end of the course.
But it's a 12-step course.
No, it's a 5-step course, 12 sessions.
Oh, 12 sessions.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's the thresholds.
Yes.
Okay.
We go beyond that. We tell them about personal style. That you can choose as to whether you're an angry type person or not. That's a choice. You don't have to be a person who just reacts and bullies and so forth. It's not that you are the way you are. You are. But you don't have to be that way. You can. It's all a matter of decision. And it's a wonderful thing.
Sounds it. Now, my plan and how I make decisions is a little bit smaller than that.
Uh-huh.
I just do pros and cons. And I always have a plan A, plan B, and plan C. Mm-hmm. And that's usually worked for me.
Good.
But maybe I'm doing these things automatically that I'm not thinking about.
It sounds like you are. And the motion that you made me think that you have a visual list of things that you think about. It's not just ideas floating in your head that one emotional item can come to the forefront and block everything else out. When you have your pros and cons, write them down. So you see them all. They can't hide and get
Right.
buried back in your feelings.
Well, if someone has ever watched the show before, I've mentioned many times that I do these A to Z lists.
Yes, yes.
Yes, I do one or two. I did 2 today. I do 1 or 2 a day usually.
Do you really?
Yeah, and so I often do an A to Z list of the pros and cons. But of course, if it's a situation where I have to make a decision immediately, I don't get a chance. Oh, hold on a minute, I got to write an A to Z list. That doesn't work.
Yeah.
But if I have time, I'll do an A to Z list.
Well, you've trained your mind with this A to Z list, so even if you have to make a quick decision, it's still running over a bunch of alternatives.
Yep.
Yeah, that's good.
Cool.
We got to point out this article in today's paper.
New Haven Register today.
Today.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have to add here, I get the New Haven Register, and I get to it every day. To me, it's like a Christmas gift in the morning. And today, I brought it in from outside, did not unpack it from its little yellow sheet, or yellow bag, and here's on the front page, you're going to tell us. I missed it.
Right here, something is happening at Big Cheshire. That's the maximum security prison that's very close to us. They have an innovative program to help inmates not come back to prison. It's called TRUE, T-R-U-E. Truthfulness, respect, understanding, and elevating towards success. And it pairs a young inmate with an older inmate to mentor them, and they take training in decisions and attitude, communication, and so forth. And supposedly it works really well. Front page article on that, and it's continued on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
I was happy to see that on the front page today when we're filming this.
So are they no longer doing thresholds?
They do thresholds plus this.
Plus that?
Yeah.
Wow.
They also do PEP, People Empowering People. That's an intense program going even beyond thresholds that teaches communication skills and conflict management and negotiation.
So now an inmate might be able to do all 3 of these?
All 3.
But probably not at the same time.
Right.
Wow.
But we have a waiting list to get into thresholds courses.
Oh, you're still doing thresholds?
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't personally. There are a lot of thresholds volunteers at Big Cheshire right now.
Interesting.
So, a lot of them don't do a group, they do one-on-one. They just talk with one inmate. They meet with that one inmate for 12 sessions.
So it's like a mentoring program.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, you had shown me a Peanuts cartoon.
Oh, yes.
And you wanted us to act this out.
Yes.
I can't wait to see how this turns. I'm actually going to watch the show later just so I can see how this works out.
So let me set the scene. We
All right,
have a
set the
group
scene.
of our 12 guys.
Okay.
And we acted out with them at the end of one of the sessions. And I play the role of Charlie Brown, and they as a group play the role of Lucy. So I'll be Charlie Brown, and you read Lucy's part.
Now, I have not tested my acting skills on TV, I think, ever. So I think I feel beads of sweat starting to form about how this is going to work out.
No, just get into Lucy's mindset.
I
you know
will.
how she is.
I'm going to be Lucy. I will be a Lucy. All right, Lucy.
All right,
wait,
here
Charlie's
I go.
starting out.
What? No, all right, Charlie Brown is at the psychiatrist's stand.
Yeah.
What can you do when you don't fit in? What can you do when life seems to be passing you by?
Follow me. I can't see this cartoon from where I am. Follow me. I want to show you something. See the horizon over there? Over there. See how big this world is? See how much room there is for everybody? Have you ever seen any other world?
No.
As far as you know, this is the only world there is, right?
Right.
There are no other worlds for you to live in, right?
Right.
You were born to live in this world, right?
Right.
Well, live in it then! 5 cents, please. Write in and tell us how that went, will you?
Well, the guys, they really yell at me, Charlie Brown, well, live in it then, because they realize, you know, you're here, you got to live in this world.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the only one you got.
That's right.
It's your turn. All right, so now you've made these decisions. And have they ever done any checks on the people who have taken the courses as far as recidivism?
No.
Aha.
Because it's too hard. It's very hard to stay in contact with guys who leave. And quite often, they get transferred from one prison to the next. And to maintain the records is hard. It's just that when we get feedback at the end of the classes, the things that the guys write is very impactful. And when we have a graduation exercise at the end, well, we used to have the parents come or the spouses of the inmate graduating. And I will always remember one woman who was a mother of an inmate. She came up to me and she said, "This course made such a difference in my son's life." And she put her hands on my arms and she said, "Thank you for giving me back my son." I will never forget that. Yeah.
I don't blame you.
Yeah. I mean, this opens up communication between guys and their families, between guys and their cellies. They have decisions to make, even in prison. How will they treat their families when they get visitors? How will they treat their cellie? How will they treat the CO when they're being told what to do and they don't want to do it? You know, they have decisions to make and they have to think of what are the consequences. And the COs tell us it makes a difference.
Now, you used a term I have never heard before.
A CO.
No.
Cellie.
Cellie.
Yeah.
I've heard selfie, but I never heard cellie.
The cellmate.
Cellmate.
The cellmate. It's called a cellie.
Wow.
Yeah. They're in small cells. I mean, the sink and the toilet are right there, and you're just put in a cell with a fellow inmate, and you got to get along somehow. And sometimes it doesn't work out.
No.
But if you're an inmate that has had this training, there's a better chance it's gonna your connection with your cellie will be good because you'll understand what it takes to get along.
Now, the last time I was in there, by the way, I was not in there because I had been incarcerated. I was in there visiting with the warden, and he was giving my friend and myself a tour. And so the inmates were able to have TV sets in their cell, and they seemed to have a lot of interesting things that they could occupy themselves with.
Yeah.
Is that something that you're familiar with? You've seen that?
Well, some cells have those, and sometimes they don't. Sometimes they get sent to seg, where they're segregated from other inmates. They don't have a TV. Sometimes they're in protective custody. There's one guy who threw the TV at his cellmate's head, and it is such a crisis.
Yeah.
All different kinds of things can happen. Yeah. We had that guy in class, and you kind of had to be careful about your words. But he seemed very good-natured.
Right.
That must have been a really bad day for him.
I guess so, and for the person
And
who
the
caught
person.
the TV.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I was also in there for another time, also for not being incarcerated. I was teaching cartooning to a group of 20 inmates. And it was interesting for a couple of reasons. When I first got to the prison, they opened the door and you go into almost like a lobby area, and they shut the door and you hear a clang. And then they open a second set of doors and you go through and you hear another clang, and then you know you're in there.
Yeah.
And then in the room that I was teaching the course, the door, I believe, was also shut. And I was thinking, here I am, mild-mannered cartooning teacher, in a situation with some prisoners. I have no idea why they're there, if I'm going to get someone upset or if something could happen.
True.
So it was a little bit disconcerting, but nothing happened. They were quite fine. And I was very happy that I was able to give them some enjoyment for at least a little afternoon. Yeah.
These are murderers, robbers, rapists, arsonists, the most horrible crimes they committed. You can go online with any inmate's number and find out what they did. And you're hoping to make a difference in their lives. And that going in there to do that cartooning could open up a whole attitude for them. Like, here's someone coming in to volunteer for no pay to teach me something.
Yeah.
Because we don't get paid to do this thresholds work.
Right.
And they can't believe it, that people will just go in out of the kindness of their heart to do something for them. Just that little thing touches their heart.
Now, do you think they'd still be looking for volunteers?
Oh, yeah.
So if a person wanted to volunteer, would they call Cheshire Correctional? Would they call State Correctional? Who would they call?
Well, they can call Cheshire Correctional, that has the phone numbers of all the different types of volunteering. Like, there are religious volunteers. A lot of churches go in to do religious classes and meetings with the guys. There's always AA and NA and CA meetings. Plus there's thresholds. We're always looking for volunteers. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yep.
Now, there's something that I have to add. That it's a little bit of a departure from the serious that we've been talking about. So I hope it won't denigrate anything.
It's fine.
Okay. There are groups, like you were saying, and one of them is for people who are addicted, and it's called Al-Anon, right? Okay. There's also a group for people who talk too much like I do. Do you know the name of that group?
Oh, it's got to be something good. What?
It's called On and On and On and On and On.
You know, I was a math teacher for many years, and I set up a group called Mathematics Anonymous.
Okay.
Like Alcoholics Anonymous,
Right.
but Mathematics Anonymous. And we talked about how to overcome math anxiety. And I had a 10-step program, not
You have
12
a lot of
steps.
programs with steps.
Yeah, but it wasn't 12 steps. We used 10 steps
10
because
steps.
that's the metric system for Mathematics Anonymous.
Ah. So now you also, people have learned this in the last show, but you are a rare combination of a mathematics teacher who also teaches art.
Yeah.
Like I'm an art teacher who can barely add, but you have the combination that is a rare combination as far as I know.
Well, it doesn't have to be rare. I have ways of getting people to shift how they think so they can do both. Because I believe we were created to do all kinds of things with our brain rather than just limit ourselves. And I teach people how to shift. I teach people how to draw, how to do math, how to think of how they're thinking, to think about their thinking in both areas, and it helps them do the other area. Because you do the reverse. I teach them how to reverse what they do. And that is where you get the power to do both areas.
I just cannot imagine myself wanting to be good at math. It's my major failing in life, and I think I was destined to have that fail.
You're not alone. There are many people who feel that exact same way. No big deal.
And we should add, although maybe we shouldn't, but I'm going to add it anyway. You have recently published an article in Cheshire Magazine number 4.
Yes.
Tell us about it. We have about a minute left.
Mathematics and parenting.
Yes.
Parents can make a big difference in a child's life. As to how you talk to your child, do you say to them, oh, you must be so stupid. This lesson is so easy. Why can't you do it? You may not realize your child has a learning disability. Sometimes you have a very bright child who also may be dyslexic or have ADD, but you don't really know it. And meanwhile, they're flunking and they're having trouble. You got to realize high IQ can go hand in hand with a learning disability.
All right.
And they need to know that. But the thing is to make them believe in themselves. That's the most important thing.
All right. So hopefully they can see Cheshire Magazine in real life, or they can check it out online, and they'll see an interesting article.
Page 12.
Page 12 and 13.
And
right?
13.
Yes. Well, we are done. We thank you for tuning in. We hope you've learned something that you can apply in your life, and happy day.